Welcome to Thriving with Chiropractic, where Dr. Mosier from Mosier Family Chiropractic shares a variety of topics designed to empower, inspire, and give hope. Take a few notes and enjoy the lesson.
Well, hey folks, Dr. Mosier here, and I have a special guest. So last week we learned from Dr. Dan Yachter. Well, this is his older brother, the one that adjusted his dad in chiropractic school. This is one of the guys that whenever I would go to these seminars, I would always want to reach out to Dr. David. We would sit next together in these classes, in these lectures, and really, when I should be listening to the lecture, I'm picking Dr. David's brain like, hey, how'd you do this? How do you handle this? He's a wealth of wisdom. And, you know, I like to get up early. And so I get up early and I go down to the hotel gym. Well, there's Dr. David. He's right there. He's smashing the weights. And he's been in practice for quite a number of years. So Dr. David, why did you become a chiropractor?
Why did I become a chiropractor? Well, to the best of my recollection, I remember being adjusted by my brother Dan's friend. Something happened and I hit my head and I don't know, my neck was sore. So I went over his house, got an adjustment. I must have been 18 years old. And that was it. It was just a one-hit wonder. And then I was up in University of Florida going to school a few years later. And I had a car accident and my back was injured real bad. And one of my friends said, hey, you should go visit my chiropractor. And I didn't have much of a choice. I didn't know what to do. My parents said, yeah, just go over there. And he had to help me in. I could hardly walk. I remember that. Wow. And the chiropractor took care of me. And I literally walked out. I was mesmerized. I couldn't believe how fast it worked. And that was my experience with chiropractic. And when I was in college, I really didn't have a major. I'd been working out for many years at that point. I had an interest in nutrition and I had an interest in just wellness, lifestyle in general. And being that half my family are medical doctors, one of my friends just happened to mention to me, hey, why don't you go to chiropractic school? I'm going up. I'm going to be starting here in the fall. You should check it out. Come take a ride with me. So long story short, I went up and visited the college. It was a few hours away. And I was like blown away how excited, the students were about what they were doing, the energy, the enthusiasm. It was just contagious. And I came back and I got on the phone with my parents. I said, Mom and Dad, I think I found something that I'm interested in. And, just knowing that half my family are medical doctors, most of the people on my mom's side, that's what they practice, medicine. My dad at the kitchen table, always preaching to me and my brother, if I had to do it all over again, I'd be a medical doctor. And if you're smart, you'll go to school and you'll do that. And trying to live his life vicariously through us. He would always try to persuade us to go to medical school. So when I came home and I told him that I had an interest in chiropractic school, you can imagine what the response was. Initially, it was that of shame, embarrassment. Their answer was, I don't understand. You're going to put all that time in. Why don't you just go to school and be a real doctor? And I hung up and I was discouraged, and then got a call back, and my dad called back and he said, I talked it over with your mom, and we agreed it's better than you just floundering aimlessly. At least you have a direction. You know what you want to do. Just go for it. Get it done. Because at the time I had no major. I really didn't know what I was going to do. So I went up to chiropractic school and I loved it. I went from being a mediocre to poor student to I think 1/10 of 1 point away from hitting Dean's List my first quarter there. So I was really into it. I became an excellent student. I loved what I did and I paid careful attention. And thank goodness I did, because I remember I was going to adjusting clubs and I was already getting my hands on people and we were practicing on each other. And I remember in first quarter, I was listening to the professor, and it was a philosophy class, and it was also neuroanatomy and talking about the areas of the spine and the different areas that control different functions of the body. And he made reference to the part of the spine and the top part of the neck where the brainstem is. And how it affects blood pressure, breathing, immune system, sleep, how it can cause headaches and things like that. And, I remember my dad always had health problems. He always had headaches. He always had all kinds of health issues. And it didn't really occur to me. And, other than, I know somebody who has headaches. I didn't think for 1 minute, like, man, I can't wait to get home so I could help my dad. But I was just paying attention. And I think the Lord planted a seed in me subconsciously. And we were practicing on each other. And I felt like I had a good handle on moving bones, even though I was new at it. I always had confidence in my hands and being able to get a good feel for what's going on in the spine. So I came home like a week or two later. It was on a Christmas break. And I walked through the front door, and there's my dad sitting at the kitchen table doing this. What's he got? He's got a headache.
Yeah.
So I didn't say anything. I just walked over to him. My mom gave me a hug. My dad doesn't even look up from the kitchen table. He's just in so much pain. I just walked over to him and I said, Dad, just sit still. I want to check something here. I see you're in a lot of pain. And I went up to the back of his neck and I started palpating, checking the range of motion. And I felt it was really locked up. I said, do you feel that there? He's like, yeah, what is that? I said, it's sore. It's tender, isn't it? He said, yeah. I said, that's not moving at all. I said, hold still. And I proceeded to set him up in one of the moves that we were practicing at school. Took it to tension before I even impulsed. The thing released, and it sounded like a gunshot went off. Wow. And I mean, that was it. It was like I just followed through. I got another release, and he jumped out of the chair before I could get off him. He's like, turned around. What are you trying to do to me? You trying to kill me? What the heck was that? I said, I was just giving you your first adjustment. And, I had a big smile on my face because I knew it was a good adjustment. Like, you can tell when that set is right. And he was looking like this. He's like, what are you trying to do to me? And then he's like, whoa, I've never been able to move my neck like that. He's like, wow, I can move my neck. And then literally within 60 seconds, he says, oh my gosh, it feels like someone just flushed the toilet. All the pressure has left my head. I don't have a headache anymore. What in the world did you just do? I said, I moved the bone and God did the healing. And we just gave you an adjustment. We found the cause, the source, and the root of where your headache was from, and we removed it. Now, this may not seem like a big deal, but what I didn't tell you was all the history of the last 40 years that led up to that, where I'm sure my brother told the story when he dove into the lake, and at the bottom of the lake, there was a cast iron tub. Did he tell that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm glad I just fast forwarded because you got the history on it, the trauma, the suffering, the medications, the health problems that developed after that when he was a teenager in summer camp, the dysfunction in our family. I mean, my dad was completely dysfunctional. I mean, he was an abomination of what God had intended humanity to be. He was angry all the time. He had no patience. If there was a day that went by that my brother and I didn't get a spanking, that was a weird day. There was rage that flew through our house on a daily basis, whether it was taken out on me and my brother or screaming at the top of his lungs through the house or at my mom. You probably got the picture by now. He was totally dysfunctional. And the environment that we grew up was affected by that as well. Left scars on everybody. So after that adjustment, I went back to school, and 8 months later, I get a call. I said, David, when's the next time you're coming home? I said, why? What's going on? He's like, well, just, I haven't had a headache in 8 months since you adjusted me. When's the next time you're coming back? I just want you to practice on me some more. I said, oh, okay. We can arrange that. So I came home and I was practicing on him some more. Every time I check him and, I'd adjust him, and he never really suffered, but I always continued to adjust him to keep him clear and maintain what we corrected to keep him at his best. And because of that, he continued to heal. He got off all his medications. He was on thyroid medication. He was on multiple medications, overweight. And him and my mom, their marriage went from, just on the verge of divorce years prior to now they're traveling, they're like lovebirds. I mean, they're married, they're still married today, 66 years. It's just, it's unbelievable. And I can tell you that, chiropractic gave me my dad back. My mom will tell you chiropractic gave her husband back. But, my dad got his life back through chiropractic care, and it changed my life. It transformed his life, but it changed my life and my brother, my mom, everybody around us. It had a ripple effect. Because of that, my brother had already taken his MCATs, and he was already applying to medical schools. He may have been accepted at that point, ready to go and matriculate. And there he saw that happen to my dad. And he was asking me questions in school, like, what are you doing? What is this all about? And I would send him green books. And then he'd come down. He attended some seminars with me. And I remember at one seminar there and then he made his decision, all the pros and cons of being a medical doctor, a chiropractor. He made his decision right there to go to chiropractic school. And it affected his life. It changed the course of his life, what happened with my dad, that story. And of course, me knowing the principle and living life without fear and changing our whole lifestyle and our perspective on, how we manage and maintain our health as a family. All of my kids were born at home. They've never had a drug in their body, not a pharmaceutical, not an over-the-counter prescription. They've never been immunized. They might have been to a medical doctor for a checkup here and there, but they've never been terribly ill to where I've had to take them to a medical doctor or, maybe a hospital just for trauma. But that's the power of the chiropractic adjustment. That's what happens when you live in faith and you understand what the principle is, that you understand that the power that made the body heals the body. And you always want to work with that instead of against it. And so my parents have gradually adopted that as the years have gone on. Right now they're both in their early 80s. They're not on any medications. They still come up every week. Every week they visit my office. They get on the table, they get adjusted. Not because they have an ache or a pain or this or that, but because they want to stay at their best. They want to stay at their healthiest. And that's where that's how I've used chiropractic. I don't have the best back. Or sure, I've got herniated bulging discs and whatever, but there may be some small benefit there, but there's a difference between how you're feeling and how you're healing. I get adjusted to make sure that I'm healing and functioning at 100% of my God-given potential. And I don't know anybody out there who doesn't want that. But, the sad part is that not everybody gets to hear that story. So, knowing what happened with my dad, seeing what happened with my brother, seeing how I've been able to raise a family like this. Now my son is he just finished his first year at chiropractic school. Like BJ Palmer, the developer of chiropractic said, you never know how far reaching something you may think, say, or do can affect, change, or transform the lives of millions of people tomorrow. And it happened through my family. And that's just a gift that keeps on giving. So I guess that's in a nutshell. I don't want to keep rolling and rolling and rolling. I could go on and on.
It's amazing. Like, you gave elements of the story that we didn't hear last week. We heard about you were in school. We heard about you came home, you adjusted, and his life changed. And we heard about health issues, but I didn't know about the anger and the marriage and that's what it's all about. And that blows me away, and it makes me wonder. Obviously you felt comfortable with adjustments and you were good with your hands, but taking that to a chronically ill patient, being your dad, were you nervous?
Probably not as nervous as I would be with a patient that I didn't know. It's like my dad dished me out plenty of abuse, and my idea was that if I hurt him a little bit, that's just retribution.
Nice. Perfect.
But, no, in all seriousness, I did have a sense of confidence because I had practiced so much, and I was just so excited. I didn't really have fear. I just went for it. I knew that he would be just so much better off if I could adjust him, just find and remove that interference, and just look at the possibilities of what happens from there. I was just so filled with excitement about the possibilities that I didn't even think about like what could go wrong. I just, I never, it never even occurred to me. The thought never even occurred to me, honestly,
And your story about how your parents wanted you to be a real doctor, be in the medical field, that I relate because my mom is a nurse. And so she actually told me, I would rather you be a male stripper than a chiropractor, which I think I would have been, done well at, but, we don't need to talk about that. But, and now every time they come to visit, because my parents live down south, where you're at, in Florida. And so when they come visit, they want to get adjusted and everything. So it's taken time for them to go from, oh, I see a chiropractor for pain to, I want to be well. I want to live life to the fullest. And I think that's what we do, is we allow people to get their lives back, and our theme here in the office this year is everyone's story matters. And so that's why I love these interviews, because you're sharing your story. I want another story from you, if you don't mind. A most memorable patient story.
Sure. There's lots of them, but one that I'll never forget, which was really dramatic because it was really touch and go at one particular moment. But this probably occurred, I would say, probably close to 20 years ago. I was only in practice for a few years, and a lady walked in and she was bent over. She was hunched over really bad. She was writhing in pain. She's like, "Dr. Yachter, my back is killing me. Can you help me?" And I said, "Well, I'm not sure. I think we need to do an exam and try to find out what's happening here." So, I consulted with her, took her in the back, and did the exam. I said, "Georgia, I think you have subluxation, and I think we need to get an X-ray to eliminate the guesswork." Mm-hmm. So she said, "Yeah." She's like, "I need help. So do what you got to do." So got the X-ray, and on the X-ray in the middle part of her back, there was in fact subluxation, but it was much worse than I had thought. It was the bones were just wrenched, tilted, twisted, turned out of alignment, and it's just like, gosh, how could there not be pressure on the nerves there? That's what's causing her back to hurt. So I said, "Georgia, come with me. We need to do something like right now." Because there's no way you're driving home. She was hardly able to move. So I said, "Let me see what I can do." And I never adjust people on the first visit, but her condition was, I needed to do something, and I needed to do it right away. So I took her out and I laid her on the table, and very, very gently, I was just putting some motion in her spine just to see if I could get the joints to unlock. Mm-hmm. I didn't know if I could or not. But much to my surprise, I just very gently started putting some motion in there, and everything started to unlock like butter. So I said, "Georgia, come on up off the table." So when she stood up off the table, she stood not just up to the point where she was hunched over before. She stood straight up, literally totally vertical, like a normal posture of a patient. So she stood straight up, and when she stood up, I noticed something that I couldn't see before because she was hunched over. She had an insulin pump. So I said, "Georgia, I didn't know that you were diabetic. How long have you been diabetic for?" She said, "Oh, about 40 years or so." Okay. She's type 1 diabetic. So I said, "Okay, well, you know what? Come back tomorrow. I think we really do need to check up on you tomorrow. I don't think you're going to hold this adjustment more than a day or so. You just come back in tomorrow. Let me just check up on you." Mm-hmm. So she leaves, and about an hour later, somebody comes running in off the street, screaming at the top of their lungs, "Call an ambulance, call an ambulance. One of your patients has passed out in her car." My patient? Who's that? I ran out there, and there's Georgia. She slumped over the steering wheel in her car with her foot on the brake. And I looked down, and the gear shifter that is in reverse, and her foot's on the brake, and she's out cold. And like how she didn't roll back into the street and have an accident, it's by the grace of God. Mm-hmm. So I put the car in park, ran back inside, called the ambulance, and then as I'm putting the phone down, it occurs to me, she's diabetic. I wonder if this has anything to do with her blood sugar. So I got some orange juice, and then I ran back outside and I started dabbing her lips with it. And sure enough, she started coming to. And just as she's regaining full consciousness, the ambulance pulls up, starts to get her out of the car, and then drives away. And I'm turned towards my office. I start walking back toward my office, and I'm thinking to myself, what just happened? You know, I thought I was helping her. She walked out of here looking good, and then apparently I just put her in the hospital. What did I do wrong? I don't understand. What did I do wrong? I just put this lady in the hospital. Something I did wrong. I don't understand it. So I went home that night. I hardly slept. Came back into the office the next day. Got in early so I could study the x-rays and figure out what might have happened. And make a long story short, it was a very busy morning. I was taking care of one patient after the next. The office is filled up. And I heard the front door open. And I just happened to look up, and guess who it is? It's Georgia. And she's smiling ear to ear. She's glowing. She literally looks like 10 years younger. And then she walks in, and she walks right up to me, clears the path. I'm with patients. She doesn't care. She just puts her arms around me. She starts hugging me. She says, Dr. Yachter, I don't know what you did yesterday, but I haven't slept this good and felt this good and had this much energy in 40 years. Can I have another adjustment? And I said, yeah, we can get you another adjustment. But before we do, I need to share something with you. And as soon as I was done with that last patient, I took her over to the view box and I went over the x-ray with her. And I pointed to the x-ray, the area of the middle part of the spine. I said, Georgia, do you see that area right there? Do you see that, how that bone is out of alignment there and it's pinching the nerve? Can you see that? Yes. I said, now I want you to look at this chart. You see that same area of the spine? You see what nerves you see where those nerves go? Where do they feed off to? Which organs do they feed off to? Oh, it looks like they go to the stomach and the pancreas and the spleen. I said, very good. That's right. So here's what I think what happened yesterday. I thought I did something wrong because you went off in an ambulance, but actually I think I did something right. Here's what happened. I said, when I moved that bone and took the pressure off the nerves, you know, it wasn't just to get you out of pain. What also happened was it opened up the nerve supply feeding off to your pancreas in your stomach. And I think your pancreas started to regain function because of that, because of getting more nerve supply. And it started making insulin, but your pump was still on. So you got too much. She said, you know, that makes sense. Are you going to adjust me now or what? So like, she did not care about the technicals. She didn't care about the geeky part, all the details. She just felt so good. She couldn't remember the last time she felt so good and so healthy. She's like, I just want another adjustment. I said, okay. Well, she committed to care. She was coming 3 times a week. At the end of 4 weeks, I did a progress evaluation. And she said, yeah, I don't have any back pain, but I thought you might be interested to know that my endocrinologist has reduced my insulin requirements on my insulin pump. I went from 8 units. Now I'm down to 5. I said, wow, that's interesting. Kept taking care of her. Another 4 weeks, I do another progress evaluation. She said, thought you might like to know, I'm down to 3 units now. This was 8 weeks into it. Another 90 days goes by, I do another progress evaluation. She says, right now, my endocrinologist has me down to 0.8 units. I started at 8 units. I'm down to 0.8 units. He's never seen a brittle type 1 diabetic make a recovery like that. He wants to know what your clinical protocol is and if you'd be willing to share it as far as how you reversed my diabetes. So that was an interesting question. How do you answer that? What's my protocol for curing diabetes? Did I cure her diabetes? No, I wasn't trying to cure her diabetes. What happened was I actually found and corrected the cause of what was stopping her body from controlling and regulating insulin properly. It wasn't like she wasn't born like that. It happened after a car accident. She went off a snowy embankment in Canada 4 years earlier. Her car hit a tree, got mashed up, wrenched her spine out of alignment, caused a subluxation. And that was the defining point in time where thereafter she started having trouble with her digestion, her blood sugar, and soon became diagnosed as diabetic. And then from there, that's when all her disease started. It was traceable back to that point. So we all go through these things: slips, falls, trips, car accidents. You know, it's like whoever thinks, you know, it's going to lead to disease, And then you go and you get your disease treated. But, if people were getting checked on a regular basis, they could prevent the disease. If you find and correct the cause of disease before it has a chance to develop, you nip it in the bud. What is that worth? So I wish I would have met her 40 years earlier, because no, I wasn't willing to share my clinical protocol with her medical doctor on how to cure diabetes, even though I wasn't curing diabetes. I said, you go back and tell him I moved the bone and God does the healing, and leave it at that. But that is one of my most memorable stories, at least one that comes to mind right now.
Awesome. Well, that was amazing, because there's so many people suffering with diabetes that really they probably shouldn't be.
Right.
And Dr. Dan told a story when I went to lunch with him about adjusting you. I guess you were on a zip line.
Yeah.
Do you care to share that?
Sure. Yeah. This is Thanksgiving Day. There was a zip line that I put up last year. It was when COVID and the kids were sent home from school, and the whole lockdown and all. I said, all right, let's do something productive. So I built a tree house in our backyard, and mostly for my younger son. I guess he was 12 at the point. So when we got up there, we're on the deck. It was probably about, I don't know, 8 feet up off the ground. And there was 3 trees that were close together. So I made a platform, and that wasn't good enough for him. So he said, can we make a zip line? I said, okay, we'll make a zip line. Well, we have a pretty nice sized backyard, 120-foot run from that platform out to the next tree. And it was good. It worked well. I had a lot of fun with it. It was up for about a year and a half, but I didn't ever suspect that, a 4-cord steel, braided line could actually rust out. It was the first time I ever did something like this. So apparently it rusted out. I had no idea, or it was like on the verge of snapping. So my brother was over, and, he's got 3 younger kids. My kids are a little bit older. They went on it. It wasn't a problem. His kids weigh much less. Wasn't a problem. Everybody's having a good time. And then I'm up on the platform there, and I was helping them just get on and hold on tight, just to make sure they were safe. So instead of walking back down the ladder, I said, well, let me just take the zip line down. And I did, like I always did. But at this point, it was ready to snap. So when I left the platform, it snapped. And when I went down, it snapped from the far end. And I went down like a sack of bricks. And I went down flat on my back, and my head snapped back. So I got a whiplash. And, my history is I've got multiple herniated discs in my lower back and my neck from car accidents and, all types of things. So my back has never been in the best of shape. I work hard every day to make sure my back is strong enough to go into the office and adjust. I do core. I do all kinds of things every day. I don't take it lightly at all. So I'm the last person that needed to happen to. So when I hit that floor, I knew I was in trouble. And I just sat there for a minute like, oh my gosh, this is not good. It was the kind of impact that literally should have been career ending, let alone and my ability to walk or use my legs or my arms. So I did not know what to expect. So I said, let me roll over and see if I can move my limbs, and using the same core muscles that I use every morning to keep my back strong to support, all the damage that I've got there. I was able to roll myself over. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could roll over. Wow, that's good. Next thing I know, I push myself up. I'm walking like the Tin Man. I can't move. I've got no range of motion in my neck, nothing in my back. I went straight in and just got the ice on my neck, got the ice on my back. And that was it. I started icing literally every 20 minutes, on, off. Did that the rest of the day. And then I think by the next day, my brother was able to adjust me. Thank goodness this was on Thursday, because they stayed Friday, Saturday, went home Sunday. So he was able to adjust me on Friday twice, on Saturday twice, and then on Sunday, I think, before he left. And by Monday, I was back in the office and I was adjusting.
Nice.
And by the grace of God, first of all, I've never been more thankful on Thanksgiving Day to not have my livelihood, how much I love serving the Lord through the vehicle of chiropractic and taking care of people. Thank you, Jesus. That's all I could think. Thank you, Lord. Just so thankful for that. And all the other things that I love in life, just could have ended just like that. But after that, I thought back and said, okay, well, how long have I actually been getting adjusted? We're going on more than 30 years now. And, there's definitely factual evidence to state that when people are getting adjusted and the joints are mechanically sound, your body can absorb trauma and impact much greater than somebody who's subluxated. In other words, if the vertebrae are out of alignment, if they're locked up, there's rigidity and your body is not resilient. And that type of force gets transmitted through the body and the bones and breaks them. That's what causes fractures. As opposed to when you're regularly adjusted and your spine is moving properly, there's normal range of motion, normal joint function, your body is much more resilient. And I not only have saw that with myself, I know that was a factor, that was part of it. I've seen that time and time again with my elderly patients, those in their 80s, 90s. I've had people fall in my office, fall in the entrance. I mean, so loud that I had to run out and see what happens. And they just get right back up. Most people are not under chiropractic care. They're in the hospital with a broken hip. And that usually is the beginning of the end. So that's what I would say about that. I mean, that's definitely a factor as far as all the years of chiropractic. I always tell my patients, you never know where it's going to come from or when it's going to come, where life just knocks the wind out of you. But maintenance care pays dividends. It's money in the bank account, and you never know when you're going to need it. And every adjustment that you get just builds up that health account. And every once in a while, you're going to debit that account, but you're going to have plenty left in reserve. So
that's true.
Yeah, I'm not above the law. Sometimes you got to take your own medicine, so to speak, right?
Absolutely. But that is amazing, because I think he was describing it. You were 10, 15 feet in the air, which that is far enough to be done. So with all your life experiences with chiropractic and everything, what's your goals now? Where do you see yourself going, furthering the profession and
Well, I definitely have a heart for this, especially the students and the younger generations that are coming out now, and making sure that we keep chiropractic pure and unsullied and make sure that it gets delivered the right way. And then we get to maintain our rights to practice the art, science, and philosophy of chiropractic the way it's meant to be practiced, and not let it get watered down. We need to protect it. And so there's a lot of organization that goes into that, a lot of consideration, and just making sure that we reach and teach people, and then, so part of it is the students, the younger generation, the next generation of chiropractors, my son included. And then the other part of it is just making sure that I continue to just serve in my own backyard. I wake up every day and, my vision and my mission is to teach people the principle, principled living and thinking, and that they would apply it so that they could live their lives in faith instead of fear. And, if people don't understand the principle, if they don't understand that, your body's intelligent, that the power that God made your body with is what heals it, then they're always going to live in fear. If they don't get that, then they have a hard time making decisions come crunch time. And then they fall back into, going to more doctors, taking more medication. I'm not saying that there's not a time and a place necessary for that, but leave that for last. Give your body a chance first. And so if you don't change your thinking, you never make better decisions. And if you don't make better decisions, you'll never get the permanent results that you came into the office with looking for in the first place. So that's the most important part. That's why every new patient who comes into our office, the most important visit is the patient orientation class. No one passes go. No one collects 200 before they come to that. It's an absolute requirement in our office because, I don't want their spine. I want their mind. I want to make sure that they get permanent results and that they change their life and that of their future generations to come. That is my legacy. That's what I'm working on.
Nice. That is absolutely amazing. Folks, I hope you took notes as you were watching this, because Dr. David is a wealth of knowledge, and I'm just in awe of this conversation. This was powerful. So thank you, Dr. David, and stay tuned for next week, Thriving with Chiropractic.
Thank you, Dr. Chris. Appreciate you.
If you found value in this video, please comment and let us know your biggest takeaway. We also ask that you don't keep this information to yourself. We ask that you share it with your friends and family by simply clicking the share button below.